Hello friends and welcome to my patch 7.29 highlights video. We won't go in depth on every little change because a lot of them are kind of minor and just kind of buff or nerf a hero just a little bit to kind of keep them in balance. But I'm just going to highlight some of the bigger changes and what I think they will lead to. So let's get into it. We'll start off with Dawnbreaker, and I'm actually not going to talk that much about it. New hero comes out, usually pretty strong. They say it's a core hero, but we're going to play it in every role, and we'll figure it out from there. So if this hero looks fun to you, go play it, because the numbers look really strong right now. It's usually how new heroes start out, and then it gets nerfed later. So play this hero in every role. Let's figure it out. But I won't lie to you and tell you that I know where it's going to go right now, because I have no idea. Next, the map got some changes. Now, before talking about them, shout out to Valve. This UI is awesome. I love the way you can compare this stuff. Like, look at the trees on the towers now. You can, like, see all the different paths, and that's awesome. I hope we get more stuff like this. Now, what it means for the game, I'm not 100% sure. I think pulls might be changed a little bit. I have to test that after this. And ward spots will definitely be different. Also going to have to be a future video. But you'll notice at the tier 2s, there's a lot more trees than there used to be. So this is like the bottom tier 2. This is what it is now. This is what it used to be. Look how open this is. I think it should be scarier to push tier 2 towers now, especially with the increase to teleportation range. The pathing here is like easier as well. So it should be a lot easier for, say, the Dire team to teleport heroes into the trees without you knowing, and then suddenly they all run out and they kill you. Or maybe they're not, and you can't really tell because the trees are there, and they respawn faster, by the way. So even if you cut the trees, they're back sooner, 2 minutes sooner than before. I think it could be tougher to push tier 2 towers, but we'll have to see. Now, if you don't read the patch notes usually, I do recommend taking a look at the general updates. This is a lot of what I have to talk about because there are a lot of big things here, and I think there's a lot of stuff in this patch. So first, the water power rune, a new rune in the first 4 minutes. So the 2-minute spawn and the 4-minute spawn, there will be 2 water runes at each location. The water rune itself heals you 100 health and 80 mana. Maybe that gets nerfed in a bit, who knows? And it can fill your bottle. What that means is that many mid laners may start to rush bottle again, because before it was bad because there was nothing to refill it, and it was just a useless item. But now you get a rune, and you're almost guaranteed to get a rune because 2 spawn. Now at 6 minutes, it goes back to the usual power runes. Water runes don't spawn anymore. So this should add a little bit of consistency to the mid lane, because many mid laners hated that. Oh, they got a double damage rune, and I lost the lane at 4 minutes. So now that shouldn't happen until 6 minutes, and then they'll complain about it. But in the meantime, both having water rune should kind of make it a little more consistent, I feel like. Now, whether the supports need to roam for this, we'll see. It kind of feels like good if they fill both. If they rush a bottle and then you stop them from filling it, like, that's pretty good. Now they don't have stats. But because there's 2, it feels like it's actually harder to control both rune spots. That was the goal anyways, but then there was still a bit of RNG that it spawned on your side. Like, you guaranteed one spot and you contest the other. Now you kind of have to, like, guarantee both spots to make sure the enemy doesn't get anything, and that seems a little harder. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the 4 still needs to roam over. I think they kind of will. But anyways, let's move on. Attributes are back. The most important thing for now, make sure you don't accidentally skill up your attributes instead of a spell. This used to be in the game before. For those of you who are kind of new, it's back. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what heroes are going to want attributes first right now. Like, who will get points in their attributes instead of their spells. But I suspect it'll be supports who have mana pool issues or are dying a lot, so like health issues. So someone like Crystal Maiden, who only needed a few points in all her spells, and then she kind of does what a Crystal Maiden does, but she would love to have a bigger mana pool, and she would love to not die as much because she's so fragile, so she might take a couple points in attributes. We'll see. It's tough to know right now, to be honest. So yeah, that's my feeling for it, and we're gonna see. I think a lot of people for now will probably just skill up all their abilities like usual, and then just get attributes at the end, and I think that's probably a totally safe approach for right now. But But I think moving forward, you will see some people really make some specialized choices to take attributes instead of certain spells, and that's just going to make making guides for heroes even more complicated, but we'll worry about that in the future. Outposts. They are no longer an objective to just get every 10 minutes. They give you constant XP every minute, a little less than before. This makes outposts a bit more important to consistently control. You don't get double XP, so you both start with your outpost like usual. You both get XP. If you cap the enemy's outpost, which you still need to get the tier 2 tower, I believe. It didn't say otherwise. You don't get more XP. They just don't get XP. So it's still good to get the enemy outposts, and it's still bad to lose your outposts, but it's more consistent. You know, last time it was just like, it's getting close to a 10-minute mark. We got to go cap it. We got to go protect it. Now it's like, well, we lost it for 1 minute. That's like, you know, it's not too bad, but we kind of need to go back and get it. So I think this will require a bit of time for people to get used to. But once a tier 2 tower falls, it will be a little more important to pay consistent attention to an outpost, and it's a little more rewarding if you keep control of an area. So, like, someone could hold an outpost for 9 minutes and then lose it in the last minute, and they get absolutely nothing for it now. But now, with this new system, holding it for 9 minutes is really good, and then they're going to lose it for the 10th minute, but it's like, whatever. It's just a bit of XP. So, I think there's a lot more rewarding for consistent outpost control, and I think we'll see that a bit more. Bounty runes, not a lot of cuts to make here, guys. A lot of big points all in a row. Bounty runes are changed quite a lot. It's now every 3 minutes they spawn, and there's not 4 of them anymore. There's 1 in each jungle. The spawns that were there before, the ones in the river, are gone. Every 3 minutes. So I think this kind of kills the side lane bottles for off laners or maybe 4 supports. Position 1s and 5s rarely got it. There's not enough bounty runes for everyone now. So mid laners seem to be encouraged to buy a bottle sooner, and that means they are going to want the 1 bounty rune that spawns. So I think off laners mainly are the ones affected. I don't think they can get a bottle nearly as often as they used to. The bounty runes also stack. So, like, say the 3-minute one is around and it gets to 6 minutes. In the past, it just knew one wouldn't spawn. Now there'll be 2 bounty runes there. So now you have to be really careful of not leaving it too long, because the enemy 4 might just come and get 2 runes. Someone is going to have to, like, kind of keep on top of this a bit to not give up a bunch of gold. But I guess that was kind of the case anyways, because someone could get there a little early, pick up an old one, then a new one spawns, and they pick that one up too and leave. So it's just going to happen more often now, which I think is both interesting, but maybe a little less punishing, because I feel like you'll now want to do something every 3 minutes. But at the same time, if you miss one, it's like, well, I'll just get the one in the next 3 minutes. So we'll see. It's going to be a little tough to remember the timings for all this. 3 is not nearly as easy to work with as 5, but it'll now be something to do like every 3 minutes and to keep an eye on. Hero kill assist gold got changed a little bit. They didn't provide formulas for what it is now, so I'm not exactly sure how it'll affect, but if this is significant, it could encourage more fighting. But I don't know. Maybe it's a nerf, so that would encourage less fighting. So I'm not 100% sure, but whatever the formula is, there's a good chance it will affect what is valuable to do. But sorry guys, I haven't dug up the math quite yet. Now, heroes start the game with 1 TP scroll is pretty interesting. A lot of people would start bottom. Say you're position 5. You go bottom, you just TP top. Now you don't have a TP. Now if you die, you actually get a TP, which is really cool. But if you don't die, you don't get another teleport, which is now 10 gold more expensive, so it's 100 gold now. So if you did something like that, like you started bottom, or you tried to steal, you did steal their rune, and then you had to TP back to your lane for safety, now you don't have a teleport. And if you don't die and you're healthy, and then suddenly the mid needs a rotation, you can't go unless you spend 100 gold on a new teleport scroll and bring it out to you. So I think this makes it more punishing to try those types of plays. Like the 4 support, just running in circles, stacking up creep waves, things like that, and then TPing to safety. If they do that, they still can but then their plays right after that are a little limited unless they spend money. Now, after your initial 3 teleports, you did need to spend money, but you had 3 teleports, and that's usually enough to get through the laning stage despite doing a series of antics and rotations. So, I think we might see a little less of that, or you just have to spend more money to do that. And maybe that money will come from these like new assists, I'm not sure, but there will be a bit of a shift to this meta. And in fact, just the other day, I was saying how cliffing does not feel like if you take telekinesis on Rubik and you cliff someone, it didn't feel rewarding because people had 3 teleport scrolls. But now, maybe it is, because they have to use their teleport scroll just to get off the cliff. Now they have to spend 100 gold to get a new one, or they have to walk to rotate. They almost die, they have to walk home. They want to go help mid, they gotta walk there. They can't teleport. So this should have an impact on early game rotation. 3, you just had a lot of freedom to rotate like once every 100 seconds roughly. So we'll see how this affects it. I think rotations will be affected though. The second Roshan drops an Aghanim shard. So a lot of people had cool shards, but then they were like, I'm not paying for that. If you kill Roshan twice, that one drops an Aghanim shard. None of the other Roshes do. So that puts some unique value in the second Roshan, which is really interesting. And I mean, you're guaranteed to see at least 1 shard a game now where there's 2 Roshan kills, which some heroes like just never bought their shard because it wasn't worth gold, but the effect was cool. So now this will be a way to get maybe those heroes some shards, or to give a shard to a support who's too poor to buy one, but their shard is pretty good. So it's just another Rosh drop, more value to doing Roshan. You guys, you always send me replays and no one does Roshan. This will emphasize the importance of Roshan. It's really good to get. Lots of minor changes here that aren't so like minor, but we're not going to read over all of them because otherwise the video gets too long. But there is one other thing I want to point out. There are now 6 more bans in matchmaking. So being a single hero spammer might be a little bit more difficult. Or if you only like playing some of the most popular heroes, the way the algorithm works last time they told us about it is that popular heroes with good win rates are more likely to get automatically banned. Even if no one else tries to ban it, the system will ban them. So if you only play those type of heroes, there's a higher chance you're not going to get to play those type of heroes. So this kind of encourages you to have a little bit wider of a hero pool, or just to play some really obscure hero that'll never get banned. But 6 is quite a lot. It is going to ban out quite a few heroes every game now. So I just thought it was worth pointing out. All right, let's upgrade to the big camera. Guys, mid players get wrecked. I am free of the shackles of the mid lane. We get an entire Tango now. Tangos expire in 40 seconds when you share them, which means the mid laner cannot request Tangos. You don't understand, guys. Maybe you do. This opens up your beginning itemization so much as a position 5, because every game you have to share 2 Tangos. And that means if you buy 1 set of Tangos, you only have a single Tango, and a single Tango is not enough for the laning stage, so you had to buy a second set of Tangos. That is 180 gold that always had to go into Tangos, but no more. Now you can enter the lane with 1 set of Tangos, and 3 Tangos is a good starting point for the lane. Much better than 1 Tango. So now, that's 90 gold you save. And that, it opens up so much with the beginning items. I'm so excited for this, guys. It's really cool. I'm really excited about it. Mid laners, gonna have to get your own Tangos. Woo! Second change. Necro is gone. I'm mixed feelings about this, guys. Necro book was really frustrating to play against. It made warding really difficult, and it felt really bad to just get killed by a hero with Necro book as a support. But it is a little sad to see it go. It's been in the game for quite a while. I don't know. Should make warding easier. I'm very curious how Lycan and Beastmaster, those heroes who were rushing Necro in so many games, they got buffs, and if you play those heroes, definitely check them out. But Necro was a big item for this stuff. So it should really affect those heroes. Not sure how it'll play out in the long run quite yet. Now, a lot of these other item changes are far less impactful as these first two. But Satanic is looking better. It's got its own basic Dispel now. Should see more carries buying this. Abyssal no longer has the blink. That's actually kind of big, because if you think about many carries who were very meta, they all bought Abyssal. People like Monkey King, Troll, Ursa, and they used it to kill you, because they used to have issues getting kited, and suddenly they have this blink ability that stuns and hopefully bashes right after, and they would just kill people. But now it's a melee ability again, so it should make life a little more difficult for those melee heroes, so ranged heroes should get a little bit more popular again. Sentries, also cheaper. This is also very exciting, guys. 25 gold. This really changes the starting items, because sometimes you just had to start with the Sentry and it was just 75 gold you didn't get to have, and now you get 50, or you had to like blanket your jungle with Sentries, and now they're just cheaper. The radius is a little smaller. I will have to play around the map and see how that affects it, but it does mean it's a little harder to deward when the radius shrinks like that. But they're cheaper, and that feels great. BKB, also a pretty significant change. So it used to start at 10 seconds and go down to 5. It's now 9 to 6. So I think it should feel less oppressive when BKB is this incredible item, and suddenly it's like, well, we just lose the next 5 fights. We're the magic-based team, whatever. We lose the next 5 fights until it gets to the very end, and then suddenly BKB is like super easy to handle when it's only 5 seconds. And on the other side of that, as a carry, it felt really awkward, where it's like, sometimes it was incredible, like 10 seconds of spell immunity at the start, but then other times it was like, I had to use it for a safety and get out. So I used 2 seconds of the 10-second BKB, and that felt really bad. And then by the late game, 5 seconds just didn't feel like enough time. So now it feels a little easier to use BKB. If you're the magic damage team, it doesn't feel as oppressive at the start for so many fights in a row. But for the guy who needs the BKB, he doesn't feel so bad using it. Plus, 6 seconds at the lowest cooldown is like, it's 1 second higher than the 5 second. So overall, I think it's like not so extreme on either end. It's now like more in the middle, and I think I like it, but we'll see if that really changes the meta. I think if you need it, you need it. Clarity is a little worse. Everyone's buying clarities. But I don't know. I think we'll still buy clarities when we need it. So it's a change, but it's still there. A lot of these are minor. Force Staff, though, now uses Fluffy Hat, and I think that's massive. Fluffy Hat is awesome, but it didn't build into anything that most supports wanted to ever buy. And so it was just this dead end item, but not anymore. Now it goes into Force Staff, and Holy Locket is a little better. I don't know if it'll become meta, but that's 2 items that many supports can reasonably buy, especially this Force Staff. Almost every support can justify a Force Staff almost every game, so I'm very excited about that. Solar Crest, solar cheap now. So much less money on it. It is a little bit worse, but I like this. I think we might see more Solar Crest now. The buildup is a lot easier than having to buy an ultimate orb, and it's a little worse for what it does, but it's an upgrade to an item for a support, So I think that'll be pretty cool. Kaya gives a lot more mana regen amp, so that should help a lot of int spellcasters. Mech is 100 mana cheaper to use. That is huge. So many supports could not buy Mech because of its insane mana cost. But now it's 100, and that's pretty reasonable. So casual Mech, maybe. You might still want to have Arcane Boots so you can build it into Greaves, but in the past, if you had Tranquil Boots, it felt like you couldn't even buy Mech because of how expensive the mana cost was. But this is workable. 100 mana, very reasonable. So neutral item updates, most of them are small changes, buffing or nerfing them, and we don't have to worry about it too much. Royal Jelly is removed. I think this was fine. It was the only item that you got, and you just kept the whole game. So usually you're only supposed to have 1 neutral item. If you get Royal Jelly, you technically had 2. And that felt like kind of unfair to be able to benefit from 2 neutrals. But it also felt very unfun in the fact that most neutrals someone takes, and later they can pass it on to someone else. Royal Jelly, no question. It almost always went to the mid laner, and then usually the safe laner, but sometimes the off laner, and very rarely ever to a support. at least in a pub game. In the pros, like, sometimes they would. But if you guys have played pubs, you know, the second it drops, the mid player's pinging you, he's like, give it to me, give it to me. The carry's like, give it to me, give it to me. And the offlaner's like, I will stop playing if you do not give me one of these royal jellies. And it's like, no one's even asking, do I? I would like a royal jelly. I've never even had it. I don't, you know? I think I've gotten royal jelly like 3 times when I played Io. I don't think I've ever gotten it on another hero. So, yeah, it's gone now. So who cares? Trusty Shovel, you now get mangoes instead of TP scrolls. This is pretty interesting with the TP change they included, but I also kind of like it because some games where you didn't need to rotate too much, you ended up with like 6 teleport scrolls and there was like no value to it. And because of the way they stack, you would dig it up and it's very hard to pass off to someone, especially if you're like by yourself roaming around, who knows? If you pick it up, it just went to your stack, so you couldn't share it. The mango change is really cool because you almost always would love more mana, and it's much easier to share with people when you dig it up. The mango is technically worth less than the teleport scroll, though. So technically a nerf in terms of net worth, but I think an actual utility, I think a mango is more consistently valuable. So I kind of like this change. Now, almost everything else is relatively small, but Flicker is one thing I did want to address. Flicker, you would only use when you needed move speed and a dispel. But because of the random blink, it was very hard to actually use the item without randomly screwing yourself over. But now it always blinks in a forward direction a bit. And that's still some randomness, and the distance is still a bit random. But now it's pretty much guaranteed I need to go up this cliff or down this cliff. Boom, Flicker, and it'll work. Or I'm running away. I don't care if I go left or right a little bit, but I need to go forward away from the enemy. Flicker. So I think this adds so much more control to the item, and that actually makes it really valuable, whereas before it just felt like I'm about to go into 5 enemies or to safety. Here we go, fingers crossed, YOLO. And so I think a lot of people didn't choose it. Finally, hero updates. So let's wrap off the biggest changes, the things that look interesting. Abaddon could see him a bit more, especially as a support. Now, his changes are actually a mix of like buffs and nerfs, but the big one I want to highlight is these first 2. Base health regen. So if you watched yesterday's video, you know I'm a big fan of this. Abaddon hurts himself to heal his core. So getting more health regen is great. Plus, if he's position 5 Abaddon, he doesn't have to share tangos anymore. Woo! So he's got more health regen to give to his team, whether actually sharing a tango with them or healing them and then tangoing himself. Either way, it should be a little easier for Abaddon 5 to function. So we might see that. Plus, the shard reduces the cooldown of his abilities by 1 second. Doesn't seem like a lot, but Abaddon's shield is really powerful as a strong dispel. It's why people play him as a support. So if you lower that, I mean, that's pretty good. So I could see him being more of a support now again. Now, Beastmaster, with the loss of his Necro book, had to get a lot of changes to make him, you know, in theory, still viable. We'll see if that actually comes out. He got base armor. That's great. Got a lot of little changes that seem to be pushing him towards building a shard and maybe an Ags. I'm sure this hero will be fine in the end, but it's going to take a little bit of time to figure out how to play him without a Necro book. Same with Lycan. The bounty shard looks pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it's like I mean, you take 40% less damage while invis, you stun when you hit someone out of invis, and the cooldown is lower by 5 seconds. So it's like, is it a support that now initiates out of invis? Or are you a core who stuns out of invis and then kills them before they react? I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it plays out. But it's certainly an interesting change. A Broodmother got a lot of changes. She is pretty much a new hero. A lot of her old stuff is still here, but I think the way the hero plays, at least in the first 6 levels, will be very different. So her passive is just straight up gone. Her shard was like the Silken Bola. It's now an ability. Her ultimate is the spawn Spiderlings, and her old ult is now a basic ability. Webs got buffed. So before even getting into it further, you know, it's kind of crazy. It's very big changes to this Brood hero. It feels like she's not so much of a cheese pick anymore, where last time, if you didn't have a way to deal with spiders, just say goodbye to your lane. Like once she gets like level 3, 4, your lane's over. That's it. It was a super cheese pick. And now these numbers are looking kind of good. I'm not sure. But in theory, once it's balanced, because she doesn't get her spiderlings until level 6, then she can't just destroy someone in the first few minutes and just remove their ability to play the game. The enemy should, in theory, hit 6 at a similar time to Brood, and then Brood might take over the lane like usual, but at least the enemy hero has an ult, has things to do, depending on who the hero is. Maybe they can go to the top lane. Maybe they do have a way to deal with spiderlings now because they made it to their ult. Something like that. It feels like there's a bit more play for the mid lane now. Now, another way you could view that is that Brood might be a much more consistent hero, where before, if she couldn't lane with her spiders, it felt awful to play Brood. So she was like a hard cheese pick, but she could only be a cheese pick because there were a lot of ways to counter her if you knew a Brood was coming. So we might just see Brood be a more consistent hero. Seems like still a mid hero because you need the webs. But I don't know, this slow looks kind of good. Like maybe you can be side lane Brood now, and you combine, because you used to be an off lane Brood mother before it rotated to the mid. I don't know. It seems like a core. I don't think it's like support Brood or anything. I don't think so. But maybe it'll be the side lane. It'll be really interesting to see how Brood Mother changes. Dazzle is a really interesting one to me too. Poison Touch can hex when you get a shard. That seems really good. Now you have to get to 20 minutes and you have to farm a shard, but I don't know. Sounds really good. And Poison Touch now does an instance of damage right away, so now you can cancel blinks in the late game. Instead of like casting it and then they blink away, that was pretty annoying. So, kind of looking good. Grave, faster to cast, not going to get flamed so much for like just missing Grave. Should happen about 30% less, or 25% less. So that could be nice. This level 1 cooldown is also kind of significant, 6 seconds. By the end, it's the same as before, but sometimes you left Shallow Grave at 1 point, maybe 2, and you save a lot of time now compared to what it used to be. So I could see Dazzle rising in stock just a little bit, especially because Holy Locket's looking a little better now. So maybe, Dazzle, maybe. I like Dazzle, that'd be cool. Death Prophet, I'm actually not going to talk too much about, but it does seem her supporting days got nerfed, lost 15 move speed. That is a ton. This shard's kind of interesting, actually. So maybe core Death Prophet will still be fine, but support DP does seem to be a bit dead with these move speed nerfs and with this base damage nerf. 3 base armor is absurd on Doom. This is crazy. 3 armor. 3! It's nuts. Base attack time is down by 0.1 as well, and your damage is a little more consistent. It kind of looks like a nerf, but actually on average you should do just a little bit more damage, and your attacks overall should be slightly more consistent. So yeah, he lost some health regen, but I don't know. Actually, the rest of his spells weren't amazingly improved. The gold increases a bit more, so I expect to see a lot of Dooms, but he still has this issue where his ult is a really long cooldown, and the meta still feels like it could be fairly early focused, especially with a lot of these low timer events like bounty runes 3 minutes, outpost constant fighting, things like that. But tier 2s are harder, should be harder, I feel like, to take, so maybe that extends the games and that makes Doom more valuable. It's tough to say, but 3 armor's crazy, so I think we'll be seeing it a lot to at least test it out. Earthshaker you might see as a core a bit more. I feel like they can rush Ags and then use that to farm and be their initiation. So you might see some mid Earthshakers, maybe core offlane shakers, but 40% cleave seems like a farming mechanic to me. So I expect to see this. Enigma got an extra 15 seconds on level 1 demonic conversion, and then it scales down to its original cooldown by level 7. But this should make level 1 Enigma less oppressive no matter what lane he's in. He shouldn't be able to deny 2 creeps, even with body blocking. And he should just deny less creeps overall. Should make it a lot easier to play against Enigma, especially because he can't get Necro Book. So, I mean, he'll still be annoying denying creeps, but it should just be way less now. And he was getting pretty popular, so I think this is fine. Faceless Void, I'm unsure. I can't tell. Base armor's great. This time dilation now getting damage could be really good against certain heroes with a lot of spells. Unless they have a dispel. That, you know, doesn't do much. But this didn't do damage before. So this could be a lot. If you have a lot of spells, this is just like an extra several hundred damage you take. And, I mean, that is a lot. So, I don't know. Maybe he's better, but he feels like he still struggles from some of the stuff he had before. Like, a really big cooldown ult, and then, like, you know, kind of inconsistent damage at the start, which, you know, got buffed a little bit. But then, you know, some slight nerfs here, stuff like that. So, I'm not sure. Grimstroke seems really good, guys. Grimstroke Shard, first off, does more damage, then it heals the target for the damage that got dealt at the end. And they receive a strong dispel. What? That's crazy. The strong dispel is so good. Now, you do have to wait 3 seconds for it to go off, and technically the enemy can dispel your Inkswell from the enemy if they have a Purge or a basic dispel. But a strong dispel is really good for any hero to have. So I expect to see a lot of Grimstroke supports. And we might see some Grimstroke cores because Phantom's Embrace got 10 extra damage DPS, and your level 10 talent got changed to 50 Phantom's Embrace DPS. That means if the enemy either can't kill the Phantom's Embrace for whatever reason in time, or he like rushes an E-Blade like core Grimstrokes were doing, this spell refreshes itself when they don't remove it and does like 900 damage in between the Ren damage and the DPS. That's pretty absurd at level 10. So I expect to see a lot of Grimstrokes. Great news, Gyro support still seems viable because none of his spells or stats got changed. His Flak Cannon got buffed a little bit, which is good for core Gyro, but I think support Gyro still works, especially with the current meta. So that's cool. Hoodwink got a lot of changes. Her Scepter and Shard got added in. I don't know, though. This change kind of pushes her a bit to a support because she doesn't need items to scale the damage as much, so it's like a little better to harass. The stun damage got reduced a little bit, so not as good at farming, but the stun actual duration got increased. That's always good for supports. Other stuff, like minor changes. So, I'm not sure. We'll see. It does seem like a lot of nerfs to the hero, though. It's because she got added to Captain's Mode, and so usually heroes start off getting a lot of nerfs when they get added to Captain's Mode. I think she'll need some buffs, but maybe this Shard, maybe this Scepter is a little better than I'm reading. So we'll see. After every time IO gets changed, I think IO core might be dead, but then it always comes back. So I don't know. This does seem like some nerfs to core IO, and support IO should still be kind of okay. Like if you look at some of their talent changes, damage going down while health regen goes up, things like that should make core IO worse and support IO better. But we'll see. People are creative. I always get surprised when core IO suddenly comes back more broken than ever. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm pretty excited about this Shard stunning. It's only 0.4 seconds, which is not a lot, but it does give him a way to kind of cancel like TPs and other channel abilities that aren't just Ice Path, and that's always really cool. So, could be fun. The talent changes are going to be harder. I'm going to have to test this a lot, but could be good, but might just be very similar because, frankly, you don't always need the Shard anyways, and without the Shard, many of the other stuff is still kind of the same, moved around a little bit with the talent, so unclear, but I'm certainly going to try it because anytime you get a any kind of stun. It's usually very interesting. Any kind of stun, any kind of dispel. Those are really good. So 0.4 is not a lot, but could be. We'll see. Legion Commander's new shard, the rework, seems incredible. When you use Press the Attack, which was already a great save for the strong dispel, it now applies spell immunity for 1.75 seconds, which isn't the longest period of time, but I mean, spell immunity on your core or yourself? Like, it's kind of crazy. So, I don't know. This seems really good. Reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds as well. Shard, or the Scepter, sorry, is no longer... I think the Legion Scepter was one of the worst Scepters in the game. It made it so your team couldn't do any damage. Now everyone takes 50% damage, so herself and the target. Might not be so game-losing, because now your cores, your team can still help you get kills, even though they do less damage. I don't know, I'm still not a huge fan of it. But it does seem a little better, especially because it reduces your cooldown by 20 seconds. But it doesn't have the spell immunity anymore, so... I don't know. I still not a huge fan of Legion Scepter. This shard seems crazy, though, to me. Luna support might be a little bit dead. I'm not sure. But she lost her cast range, and she lost the shard. The original shard, which was like the stun duration, which now you get as a talent, but then you have like no cast range with it. I mean, you have some, but like 350 was a lot, and now it's gone. So Luna support might not be so popular unless you can... like, you know you're going to build Ags. And then, like, that should still have the same impact. But in games where Ags was not good, I was going for the Shard build. And now I can't really do it because the Shard is more for core Luna, it seems. So it might be pushing Luna back to being an actual core hero instead of a support. Lycan, like I mentioned, got a lot of, like, small changes. Mostly buffs to deal with the Necro change. But I'm really unclear on how it'll actually play out. In the end, we'll just have to see. Monkey King got a variety of little nerfs. Should be not so oppressive to play against Monkey King anymore. Morphling. Attribute Shift now costs mana. This adds a new weakness to him where if you mana drain the guy, he might be in a bad spot. So, it's kind of nice, because as a support, I feel like it's pretty annoying to play against Morphling. So now, mana burning stuff might be a little better against Morphling. I feel like he should have a harder time playing the game in general. You know, not every game has mana burning anyways, but he himself uses mana now, and that's kind of annoying for a guy who transforms into other people, casts a ton of spells, casts a bunch of his own spells, things like that. So it should... we'll see. It should make the hero a bit worse. Omni Knight getting some base stats, getting some increases to his spells. Support Omni Knight might be on the way again, but he also got buffs to like the shard and his talent, so maybe it's core Omni Knight. I don't know, but Omni Knight should be seeing a bit more play one way or the other. Snapfire got a lot of little nice buffs. She kind of dropped off as a support. She was kind of been playing as a core for a little bit. Maybe she comes back as a core again, but I could see her being a little bit better of a support. Armor always helps in the laning stage. A bit more intelligence to cast your spells. Lower cooldown on level 1 Cookie, so you can play more aggressive more frequently. And if you do end up buying a shard, that's a 2-second stun. I mean, that's pretty cool. So I could see more Snapfire being played. Core or support, not fully clear, but we'll see. Terrorblade changes could be huge, could be not. I'm not sure. But 1 HP regen is a ton for a guy who has a ton of base armor, which did get reduced by 2, but since he had so much base armor anyways, losing 2 is actually not such a big deal compared to when you have low armor and then you gain or lose 2 armor. He got 4 base damage. Some of his stuff did get nerfed a bit, but I feel like this 1 HP regen combined with his high armor could actually still be like really good. I think he was already in a decent spot, so we might see more Terrorblade. Timbersaw Shard was kind of... some people had like different opinions on it. It can now damage buildings for 40%, and that seems really big, because Timbersaw's biggest issue after winning the laning stage, he had no lockdown, which is one of them, and then the other was like he doesn't actually do much damage to towers. Now, for a bit, he had a 100 damage talent, and that let him take towers, but then they got removed, and people were like, "Ah, that was how he took towers." Boom. 20 minutes in, flamethrower, you use that on the buildings, or you use it to farm and use it in fights, stuff like that. Like, people were using flamethrower anyways. I feel like that could be pretty good. By 20 minutes, a good timber saw should be like in a really strong position, but then not quite able to take towers. The flamethrower might solve that. Rip Treant Protector's Invis. I don't know, guys. It's gonna be rough to play mid to late game Treant with the shard is now required to have Invis, and I'm not sure if anything he got was worth it. So Leech Seed received a significant mana reduction. So if you can play a very aggressive early game with Treant, I think that could be good. But the talents he got instead of his Invis don't feel so good to me right now. I mean, it's not bad. You get health, you get mana regen, and you get this Nature's Grasp cooldown, so you can like push out lanes faster if you pick it. But losing Invis was huge. That was a lot of utility, a lot of scouting for free that you had, and now you simply have to pay 1,400 gold for it, and that's a lot. Now, late game, you do have better living armor, and it now affects creeps, and that could be really good for globally pushing waves. But that requires you to get to level 25 in a game. So, I don't know. This feels like a big nerf to early game Treant. Or I guess early game he wasn't level 10. So let's say like mid game. The end of early game to the start of mid game. Seems like a big nerf in that regard. But then if you do make it to 25, it does seem like that should help you a lot with map control. Because it's suddenly like, oh, we're losing bottom lane a little bit. And like it's pushing into us. No one teleport. Please, allow me. You heal the whole creep wave, give them a ton of armor, and now they push on their own. And the last hero I want to mention is Ursa. So Ursa is going to get some nerfs because of the Battle Fury nerf and the Abyssal nerf. But this new shard, which casts Enrage every time he uses Earth Shock for 1.5 seconds, that seems pretty good. And it reduces the cooldown of Earth Shock by 2 seconds. So he should have Enrage up frequently, which should help him with his kiting, like getting kited, because he has his mobility spell up more, and he has the status resistance, so he can't just get like stunned and slowed so much. Could be good, but he did get nerfed through the items that got changed. And then not to mention he has to buy a shard, which is 1,400 gold. So, I don't know, but it's pretty interesting to me, this change. It feels like it could be good. And that's it. Still kind of a long video, but there were a lot of changes, a lot to talk about. And God, we're going to have to go change all the pull timings. Maybe, hopefully not. But I think we will. Lots of stuff to do with the map changes. So I'm pretty excited to play this patch. I hope this helped. Let me know what you guys think. Who are you looking forward to playing? All of that. Let's go play some Dota! Bye.